everyone, welcome or welcome back. If you're new here, my name's Nena. I help people to declutter their minds and their homes using practical applications of psychology. And today's video is one I have been wanting to make for the longest time because it addresses a topic that I think many of us secretly struggle with. Now on this channel, we often have deep conversations about the psychological roots of clutter and how we can move past them. And many of the videos I make deal with areas that I myself have struggled with. And today is no exception. I want to talk about a mindset that I clung onto for years that not only made it impossible for me to declutter, but also led to a lot of negative consequences in my life that I was simply overlooking. And when I started to work with other people, I noticed that this was a theme that I was seeing over and over and over again. And it is the subconscious belief that more is more. It's the feeling that the more you have, the more you do, the better. And I'm not talking about to a healthy extent. I'm talking about the constant quest to bring more of pretty much everything into our life all the time. And when we're talking about clutter, we can see that this mindset strongly impacts our behavior, but it actually influences many different areas of our life, oftentimes quite negatively. But when we can understand why it has such a negative impact, it can make it a lot easier for us to change our thinking patterns. And in the case we're talking about today, to get our clutter, both mental and physical, under control. And it really just comes down to committing to simplifying our life and finally letting go of this toxic mindset. So starting at the beginning, what do I really mean by the phrase more is more? I think the easiest way to explain this is by giving examples from my own life and seeing if these are things that you can identify with, because even though I didn't realize it or understand what was going on at the time, this is something that was definitely very visible and something that absolutely negatively impacted my life. So in a nutshell, I never set healthy or practical limitations in my life. So for example, with food, if I liked something, 2 scoops were going to be better than 1. If I was really into a book or a movie or a band, I couldn't just appreciate these things for what they were. I wanted to collect everything that I could that was connected to it. And I'm not talking about having 1 t-shirt with a logo on it. I'm talking about wanting 10 t-shirts and trying to find all the memorabilia that I possibly could. If I liked a TV show, I couldn't just watch 1 episode at a time. I wanted to sit and binge all of them at once. Or if I went to the library, I would always come back with this huge stack of books, even though it would be impossible for me to read more than 1 or 2 of them within the 2-week time period. And when we're talking about physical clutter, which is something that I know so many of us struggle with, it can look like having 7 winter coats instead of 2, having 3 closets filled with towels, having 10,000 coffee mugs or bins and bins of makeup, having cabinets that are simply stuffed with every single fast food container we've had over the past 5 years, or having a garage that we can no longer park our car in because it is so filled with boxes. So instead of having a reasonable number of items, we always think that more is better, and it never really gets to a point where we stop taking things in. So continuously we have more. In fact, we can feel uneasy and even panicked at the thought of downsizing. Now, of course, there are many different reasons why we can adopt this mindset or this behavior, ranging from growing up in an atmosphere of lack, or trying to numb negative emotions, or habitually seeking immediate pleasures as opposed to looking out for our longer term interests. Or sometimes we can just kind of lose control when something does make us happy or, bring us pleasure, and we just kind of overdo it. So there are many different reasons, again, why we can have this behavior, but it is a mindset that many people share. And before I forget, I want to mention that I do have about 24 videos that specifically address how to work through many of these issues in the Clutter Psychology and Solutions playlist, which I will link down in the description box below, just in case you need a little further support in these areas. But going back to today's topic, I know it can seem completely harmless. I mean, what is the problem with checking out 18 books instead of 2, or having 15 t-shirts about a movie that you genuinely love? Well, nothing really, as long as it's not a mindset or a pattern that is affecting multiple areas of your life. And if it is, and it definitely was for me, it is something that is going to cause extreme mental and physical clutter. There's no time or space to even breathe because every moment, and in a lot of cases every inch of our home, is completely filled. And once we've adopted this mindset that more is more, we're never satisfied. We never get to a point where we feel like we have enough. In our mind, it's never enough. We associate all the things we collect with happiness and security, but we never really think about how this stuff is really affecting us, or at least I didn't. And we never stop to consider how having less may actually end up giving us a whole lot more, both in the short term and in the long term. And again, here I'm talking about both mentally and physically. And this really goes far beyond gaining more mental, physical, and emotional space, or, gaining more money because we are spending less. It really starts to even affect our emotions. We can cut down on the amount of negative emotions that we feel, because there are a lot of negative emotions that are attached to the more is more mindset, especially feelings of overwhelm and feelings of guilt. It can also give us a lot more time for the things in our life that actually do matter. When our physical and mental space are always cluttered, we oftentimes fill our entire day with things that aren't really that meaningful to us. But as we start to pare down, we can make more informed decisions about how and where to spend our time and energy. And I always say that time and energy truly are currencies. They are finite, and we have to be very careful about how we are spending them. So simplifying our life really helps us to gain this clarity. Another thing that we have to think about and to remember is that having this more is more mindset really adds to the chaos in our life, because we are constantly overwhelmed. We are constantly stressed out because there are so many things around us all the time, and so many things that we think that we have to do. We never feel that we can catch up. And all of this stress really affects our life in so many different ways, from disrupting our sleeping patterns to making us feel anxious all the time. And we're going to find that we can actually get a lot more things accomplished when we start to simplify, because we are simply juggling a lot less things, so we can focus on the things that we really want to and the things that really matter. But maybe the biggest benefit is gaining the sense that we are actually in control of our life, because once we get rid of this mindset, we have less to keep track of. We have less to remember. We have less things in our life that cause anxiety. I remember for me, I never felt that I was in control, and I don't think I ever was in control. I used to have to look through, 50 different drawers to find a singular sock or a singular piece of paper that I was missing. And I hated living this way, and it affected how I thought about myself. But changing that mindset changed so many aspects of my life. In fact, my whole world changed once I realized that more is not more, and that this way of thinking was leading to a whole lot of completely unnecessary negative consequences in my life. So the big question then becomes, how do we make this shift towards simplicity? How do we start to break this mindset? Well, I think it really comes down to identifying it and noticing when we have this behavior, and also giving thought to how it's affecting our lives personally, and also what needs that this thought pattern of more is really attempting to fill for us. We have to remember that our mindsets are rooted in our experiences, and these beliefs shape how we think, how we feel, and how we behave. And that there is a reason that we have this mindset. However, it doesn't mean that the mindset is serving us, and it certainly does not mean that we have to continuously hold on to it. It's something that we can absolutely change. And when we're able to gain that clarity about why we tend to think this way, can just help us so much to be able to address it in a loving, understanding, and very compassionate way. And sometimes it can be helpful to really sit down and write it all out, figure out, where this is all coming from, and also, how it's negatively affecting our life, and what we can truly gain by shifting our thought process. And lastly, as I mentioned before, it also comes down to really noticing when we are engaging in this behavior and giving ourselves a moment to stop and think about whether or not we want to make a different choice. Most people that have this more is more mindset aren't aware of it, so it may take us a little bit of time to really be fully conscious of it. But once we do, we instantly become much more intentional about what we let into our homes and what we let into our lives, and we can very quickly see a lot of positive benefits. And please know that it is perfectly normal and natural to continue to struggle with this a little bit as we try to change our behavior. It's not overnight that we are able to, shift our habits completely or shift our mindset, but I want you to know that it is absolutely possible. I know that sometimes we think that we're too old or we're too set in our ways to even try to get out of our comfort zone, but it's simply not the case. We can always change any aspect of our life that we truly want to. So I really hope that you found today's video to be helpful and interesting. I would love to hear your thoughts, so please don't forget to leave a comment below. Also, if you're not a subscriber, please take a moment to become one. I would absolutely love it if you stuck around. I want to thank you so much for spending time with me today, and I hope the rest of your day is extraordinary.